Algebra. Today we're going to put our focus on rational numbers, and let's quickly review. Back in CO1, what is a rational number? If you're not sure, flip back and look at the definition. What is a rational number? Ava?
Any positive or negative fraction, non-decimal or decimal that ends or repeats.
Right, any fraction or decimal that ends or repeats. And so today we're going to talk about, since fractions and decimals are very much related, okay, each one has kind of like its time and place. Some examples here. When you see a price of $2.75, that's standard, right? If you saw that same value, 11/4 dollars, that'd be a little bit confusing, okay? When we talk about prices, decimals are what are used, fractions are not. Even though these two things mean the exact same, okay? 2 whole dollars and 3/4 of another one, we use decimals instead. Those who like to bake, who are my bakers in the class? Right? When you're reading a recipe and you need 3/8 of a cup, infrequently, possible, but infrequently you see that written as the decimal 0.375. Okay, baking is a situation where we use fractions. Money is a situation where we use decimals, but they would have equivalent values. So we're going to talk about converting today. And the definition of converting is to write a value in a different form. To write a value in a different form. And so we're going to focus on 3 ways to do that, from integers to both fractions and decimals, because they're kind of easy. Fractions to decimals, and then decimals to fractions. Okay, but we'll start with integers. Give me an integer. Negative what? Negative 54. Okay? So if we want to take the integer negative 54, and we want to write this as a fraction, how do we turn any non-decimal or any integer into a fraction? Does everybody know?
Would you just put a 1 under it?
Exactly, yeah. You put that number over 1. Because remember, a fraction, the operation is division. Okay, this is where division symbol comes from. You've got a dot, then a line, then a dot. It's like those 2 dots represent numbers. Negative 54 divided by 1 is still negative 54. Okay? So we've taken this and we've written it in fraction form. How about as a decimal? How would we write negative 54 as a decimal? 2 hands kind of half up then. Anyone? Sorry? 0.54 would mean that you have less than a whole, right? We want to show that we have negative 54 wholes here. So you're close, just kind of it backwards. It would be negative 54.0, right? Negative 54.0. Because negative 54, that tells us that we have that many holes. This decimal says the same thing. We have negative 54 holes and nothing after that. No tenths, no hundredths, thousands, anything like that. Okay? Give me another integer. This time make it positive. Positivity only, yeah. 14! How would you make 14 and write that as a fraction?
14.0.
As a decimal, 14.0. Good. As a fraction?
14 over 1.
14 over 1. Okay? So, to go from an integer to a fraction, our strat is put the integer over 1. Put the integer over 1. To go from an integer to a decimal, okay, add a decimal point with a 0? It's a good way to say what we did there. I guess. Add the decimal and put a 0. I don't know how else to say it. Add a decimal, put a 0. There you go. Okay? Questions on that? Rarely will you ever have to convert or to write an integer as a decimal. Usually we'll put it in fraction form to like solve proportions and things like that. So that's the one that is more important to know. But there. Ready to move on? That was the warm up. That was like the appetizer. Now we're getting to the main entree. Here we go. Turning a fraction to a decimal and then a decimal to a fraction. It says, write an equivalent fraction with a denominator of 100. The numerator is the decimal. Say what? Let's say our fraction is 9/20. Okay? Now it says we want to write an equivalent fraction with a denominator of 100. So writing an equivalent fraction means that these are equal, and our denominator needs to be 100. What's our numerator going to be here? Melanie?
45.
And how do you get that?
You do 20 times 5, you get 100, so you do 9 times 5.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah, that scale factor, right? Good. I hear people saying they remember it. You answered that deserves a button. That's loud. Okay. Yeah, we're looking for how do we get to 100, right? With equivalent fractions, what's that scale factor? 20 times 5 is 100. 9 times 5 is 45. So 9/20 is equal to 45 hundredths. When you say that 45 hundredths, what's that as a decimal? 45 hundredths. What does that look like as a decimal? Layla? 0.45. Yeah, right? And so as a decimal, 9/20 becomes 0.45, or you could read this 45 hundredths. That's why this denominator of 100 is so important. Because once we get that denominator of 100, the numerator, 45 hundredths, that just becomes the decimal. Eh? Good? Sure? Okay. Let's do another. Let's do 7/25. 7/25. And of course, this method really only works when you've got a number you can multiply easily to get to 100. You know, if I asked you for like 5/7, that'd be a little bit different method. But for our purposes, we're going to focus on those friendly denominators only, those numbers that can allow you to get to 100 very easily. Melanie?
You do it times 4.
Times 4 this time, right? 25 times 4 is 100. 7 times 4, 28. So 7/25 is equivalent to 28 hundredths. And so the decimal would be, Liam? 0.28. Very good.
Oh, yeah.
Look at us go. We're rocking. Questions on that? Is this review from last year?
Yeah.
Should be a little bit. Okay? A little bit. And finally, decimals to fractions. Write the decimal out to the hundredths place. Write the decimal as a numerator of a fraction with a denominator of 100 and simplify. So let's just start with our 0.45 here. Let's say that this was the decimal that you were originally given. 0.45. Okay? It says write the decimal out to the hundredths place, which it is. Great. And then write it as a numerator of a fraction with a denominator of 100. So if this is 45 hundredths, we can write that as a fraction 45 hundredths. Right? Notice we're just kind of going backwards. This is the key to both of these though, right? If we're starting with the fraction 9/20, it's getting to the 45 hundredths. That 100 is important. It allows us to write it as a decimal. If you're starting with a decimal, you're still going to 45 hundredths. Okay? And then it says simplify. What can we divide both 45 and 100 by? Ava?
5.
5, right? The same thing that we used up here. Okay? So divide 45 and 100 each by 5, and that gives us 9/20, the exact fraction we started with before. All right, so the key to this is getting that fraction of something over 100 by either starting with a fraction and using equivalent fractions, or starting with the decimal and thinking, what does this say? 45 hundredths. What does that mean? 45 hundredths. And then going from there. Okay? Somebody give me another decimal. Whatever you want. Layla. 0.75. Fantastic. First of all, is it to the hundreds? Yes, it is. Check. So we write it as a fraction. What would the fraction that we're going to write be? Dominic. 75 over 100. 75 hundredths out to the hundredths place. Okay. Can we simplify that?
Yeah.
Because you won't always be able to. In this case, you can. What can you divide by? Could divide by 5. There's a bigger number though. Madison?
Oh, wait, the 5 is too small, right?
Yeah, it would work, but you'd have to divide by something else afterward. There's a larger number you can just, that goes in both 75 and 100.
I don't know.
Back to Claire? 25. 25, yep. 25. So 75 divided by 25 is 3. 100 divided by 25 is 4. And that would get us 3/4. If you divide it by 5, you'd end up with 15 twentieths. And then you'd have to divide by 5 again to get down to 3/4. So going that route wouldn't be wrong, just one extra step. Okay? Let's say that our decimal, I'm going to kind of do this a sidebar over here. Let's say our decimal was 0.412. What place is that out to? The thousandths place. So when you write your fraction, what will the denominator be? 1,000, right? It doesn't really be 412 over 1,000, and then you can still simplify that. So the going from decimals to fractions is really that place value is what's super important. Questions, comments, concerns, complaints, compliments, congratulations, criticisms on this? No, very well. I think we can go to our homework now. And you've got like half hour to work on it.
Let's go.
Yeah, let's go indeed. Important note, you'll not be able to use a calculator on this section of the test, but you can check your answer by calculating the fraction and making sure the resulting decimal matches your decimal answer. So back to this up here. You can use a calculator on the homework to check your answer, but you won't on the test, so it's important to know how to do it kind of by hand here. But what this is saying, with that little check mark was saying, was that if you got 9 twentieths to equal 0.45, which we did, if you went to your calculator, because fractions are just division, if you took 9 divided by 20, you would get 0.45 as an answer. That's a good way on your homework to check to make sure you're doing it right. Okay? That's all that is. Okay. Backside, or second page, I guess. Just got a 2-pager today? Yes, we do. It says convert integers to a fraction and a decimal. Convert decimals to a fraction. Convert fractions to a decimal. And of course, show thy work when applicable. So 18. We're starting with an integer. We have to write this as both a fraction and a decimal. What is the fraction form of 18? That integer 18. Ayla.
Is it 18.0?
That'd be decimal form, which
Oh.
we need that too. Okay? Decimal form, what's the fraction form? Melanie?
18 over 100.
18, not over 100, because this is an integer.
Oh, 1.
Over 1, yep, over 1. Over 1. Because it's 18 wholes, 18 divided by 1 doesn't change the value, it's still 18. Okay? 3/4, this one we only have to go to a decimal. We do have to show our work though. So this is kind of the opposite of the second example we did on the front side. We want to take this fraction and we want to write an equivalent fraction with a denominator of 100. And so now, what's that scale factor? How do we get from 4 to 100?
So, wouldn't it be, because 3/4, when you multiply 3 by 7, no. 35?
Not 35. Right about the 5. though. But like, what goes into 100 4 times? What goes into $1 4 times? 25 times, right? Quarters. Yeah, so multiply our scale factor here is 25. 4 times 25 is 100. 3 times 25 gives us 75, right? And so our decimal value is 0.75. 75 hundredths, 75 over 100, 0.75. Okay. 19 twentieths. We'll do another one here. We want to set this to be a fraction with a denominator of 100. What is that scale factor going to be here? Lauren? 5. 20 times 5 is 100. 19 times 5? Quick maths, anybody? If 25 is 100, 19 fives would be 95. So 95 over 100 can also be said as 95 hundredths. That decimal, 0.95. Okay? Let's do a decimal. Let's do 0.34. 0.34.
Oh, never mind.
So what place value is that out to? Hundredths. So what is the denominator of our fraction going to be?
100.
100. Okay. 34 hundredths. And now we have to simplify. What can we divide both 34 and 100 by? What goes into each of them? Ava?
2.
2! And it turns out that's the largest number that does. So divide by 2, 34 divided by 2 is 17, 100 divided by 2 is 50, and so 17 fiftieths would be your final answer. Okay? The next one, 0.7, what place value does that go out to? The tenths. So what is the denominator going to be?
10.
10. 7 tenths. Can we simplify that? No, so we're done. Yay. Okay. The next one's got a whole number out in front. Oh boy. But we're still looking at the place value of the decimal. What place value does that decimal go out to? Hundredths place. Okay. But instead of just 45 over 100, we do have a whole here. So what's our numerator going to be? It's going to be an improper fraction because we have more than a whole. Madeline? Very good. Yeah. And the fraction's negative, right? So negative 145 over 100. It makes sense it's an improper fraction here because we have more than a whole, right? Remember the definition of an improper fraction is you have more than a whole, okay? So we still, though, look at how far this goes out. It goes out to the hundredths place. That's why we've got 100 here. In our numerator, 145, because it is an improper fraction. What can we divide both 145 and 100 by?
5.
5. 145 divided by 5 is 29. 100 divided by 5 is 20. And it is negative, so we have to make sure we put that negative sign in there as well. Negative 29 twentieths is our answer. No longer will I require you to convert to a mixed number from an improper fraction, simply because as you get higher in the maths, mixed numbers are used less and less. Okay? Having an answer in improper fraction form is the preferred way to go. All right? Questions, comments, concerns, complaints, comments, congratulations, criticisms? Okay, your assignment for Tuesday, because Monday we're going to finish, anyone who needs to finish the map test will do so during class. So this will be due Tuesday. Is to finish the rest of this page. They've got like 3 of them we haven't done yet, a whole other row here. And then down at the bottom it says match each fraction to its decimal value. So 3/10, which decimal over here on the right is equivalent to 3/10? 3/10. Yeah.
0.3.
0.3. So your line would come down like that. Woo, that's really straight. I'm historically bad at drawing, well, anything, but lines especially. When we get to graphing and I have to like connect the 2 points on the corner plane, it's embarrassing. I must have missed that day in kindergarten where we did connect the dots or something. I don't know. Okay, we good? Ready for the outro?
Mm-hmm.
With gusto, that's how you math.
Like and subscribe. Oh, don't forget to like and subscribe.
Try it again. That's how you math.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.
This time with gusto. That's how you math. With gusto means like enthusiastically, like really, like yay. Okay, that's how you math.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Better. We got the whole year to figure it out, don't we? We'll